Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back, it's Jordan here. Obviously you know that we're going to be working on the amusement park today, so it is a pretty exciting day. This morning I just really couldn't decide what I wanted to work on in the Lego City. I knew it had to be something. I had a few different options and I ended up selecting the amusement park, hence why I'm wearing my Donald Duck shirt. So yeah, today we got lots of exciting things going on. I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're finally going to be starting the amusement park. One of the things that I could have done today was add minifigures and stories to the beach. But before I do that, I actually want to upgrade all of my palm trees and I don't have the parts to do that. Plus, I still need to upgrade all 3 of these LEGO Creator 3-in-1 modular buildings. There's also a few spaces in the LEGO City that require the green space treatment, sort of like an upgrade. I've done that to a few different places in the LEGO City, but I've been doing a lot of it as of late, so I just wanted to change up my day a bit. However, these new palm trees look fantastic, and I do want to order the parts to build like 30 of those and have them all throughout the LEGO City, because palm trees like that would actually look super cool in the amusement park as well. As of late, I've been putting a huge amount of time into developing the raised platform, and honestly, it's almost done. There's just one more 48 by 48 plate that has to be developed, and I think that's going to be allocated to the rebrickable model known as the Haunted Mansion. And it's going to sit right above the amusement park. It's currently on the shelf right up here. So mills plating and integrating that onto the raised platform was the other project that I could have worked on, but it's just that's right above the amusement park. Maybe I should work on developing the actual layout for the amusement park before mills plating the Haunted Mansion. So that's why I've decided today is the day that we start the amusement park. So to be honest with you, I'm not too happy with the amusement park layout right now. There's some serious changes that have to happen just because the rides are in one big line. Also, there's this really awkward gray space right here that I'm not a huge fan of. So the first thing I have to do is actually break this line of rides by switching up the ride configuration. So in order to change this layout, I pretty much have to remove everything. Now the layout right now actually is completely mills plated, so all of the rides, actually other than the haunted house, that one is not mills plated, but all the rides are mills plated. All of the plates around those rides are mills plated as well. The first thing that I'm trying to move here is actually the Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel is sort of awkward because it sits on a 48 by 48 plate, but then it actually extends out past that 48 by 48 plate because it's like this circular shape and those cars or carriages or whatever you want to call them just sort of come out past that plate. So I want to put it in that corner where I have that awkward gray space because it's just going to be like the perfect fit. It's going to fill that corner and there's enough space there to accommodate the cars of the Ferris wheel. Now it's tricky because this corner here actually accommodates like the massive curves in the train track, and the curves are actually built on 48 by 48 plates. So this Ferris wheel now has to share a plate with some of the train tracks. So it's a little bit tricky trying to figure out the exact size of the mills plate and also just getting it perfectly aligned with the train track and not tacked down on the plates that have the train track. It was just a little bit tricky getting this mills plate perfect just because the Lego math was all sort of strange. And the loop coaster used to be in the corner there. I just think that tower is way too tall. So I wanted to move it over here. And also the loop coaster, once again, just like the Ferris wheel, actually extends off of its plate, and the Ferris wheel actually has a little bit of room on the front of the plate, so that roller coaster track can actually go over top of that. So it's actually a perfect fit when you put those two rides together. Also, the loop coaster is a very strange dimension, so I have to make 2 very strange mills plates, one for the back side and one for the front side, just so that roller coaster track doesn't collide with the train. And when you offset it like that, you have to sort of correct it on both sides. So 2 rides down and a bunch more to go. The next one is the red and white roller coaster, which is sort of an awkward plate as well because it has 4 studs that extend off the side of it. So whatever plate goes next to it, those 4 studs have to go onto that plate. Now I just move things around and try different layouts. I want to try and break that line, but every time I put a ride in the foreground there, I have to turn it and then you see the back side of it. For example, if I put the haunted house there, you see the back side of the haunted house, and it just doesn't really look that good. So I decided that the carousel is probably the best thing to go in the center, and then guests will just have to walk around it. I also have that fountain on 32 by 32 plate, and that might look pretty cool over there as well. Now, as I make all of these changes, I also have to change up the mills plates around them because these things are all big and awkward sized plates. So you have to remake all of the mills plates around them to try and fill in all the gaps and get rid of that white table space. And that includes the train track as well. I have to make some different train tracks, convert them from the 48 by 48s to some 16 by 32s just to get more space for these rides. So I end up playing a game of musical chairs with rides and also mills plates. And a lot of these mills plates are like really awkward size, like 8 studs by 48. And it's just sort of strange. So the next thing I want to take care of is the haunted house. The haunted house is actually not mills plated like I mentioned earlier. It's just sort of sitting there. So I actually decide to make it its own custom plate, and it's going to sit on a 48 by 48, but it's 32 by 32. So I've got to create this crazy sort of plate that accommodates it and also allows the haunted house to open up. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I've decided that I'm actually raising it up off the ground because I want to make a really cool custom plate for the haunted house, and that's going to look pretty neat. So that's a big task there as well. And now that's sort of out of the camera just because it's going to go into the corner there where the carousel used to be. And another thing that has to go in this amusement park is, of course, the Disney Castle. And that's going to go on the end right over there. So the next thing I have to do is actually take care of the plate for that. But let's have a quick look at what we've accomplished so far. So I think the layout's coming along quite nicely. I'm going to be talking a lot about studs, base plates, and dimensions. So I'm going to say those words a lot, okay? The Ferris wheel's in this corner here. Originally, I wanted to bring it back even further, probably about another 8 studs. You got 16 studs here, but I can't bring it back all the way just because the train track it'll be too close to the train track and the trains will collide as it comes around the corner. So technically, I could bring it back another 8 studs. But the issue is this thing is sort of like half mills plated now. It's super strange. Let me just lift it up and I'll show you. It's actually pretty sketchy now. So the front of it is actually mills plated on 32 by 48. So 1 full base plate and 1 half base plate. But the back portions here aren't mills plated. Those are actually sitting like on little podiums, I guess I'll call them, that are 2 plates and 1 tile. So then it can share the plate with the train track and doesn't have to be tacked down. Because if it was actually tacked down to this base plate here, which is part of this train track, and this base plate right here, which is part of this train track, and this half base plate right here, this would become one massive plate extending out all the way to there, and it would just be way too big. So it's still its own individual entity, but rather it's just sitting on top of those tiles, which is way better. So if I ever have to move this thing, it's going to be a lot easier. So changing that up was a little bit tricky because of course it was on a 48 by 48 plate before. Then you can see right here, this is a really awkward base plate. This is actually 10 studs by 48. It starts right here and goes all the way over there. Then over here, we've got some more awkward base plates behind the loop coaster. You see that? There's one there and another one down there, which are 8 studs wide. Now, a lot of people, when the loop coaster was over there, were asking me, why can't you push the loop coaster back? That's because, like I was mentioning, it comes off the base plate. So it would interfere with the train track. And you can see how it actually comes off the base plate this way as well by 4 studs. And like I mentioned during the time lapse, it's actually perfect to have it just barely go over top of the base plate for the Ferris wheel. So that's why I decided to put those 2 rides side by side, and that actually works out nicely because that loop coaster was just a little bit too tall in the corner over there, and you couldn't quite see the things on the raised platform. It's sort of blocking them. So this is actually a base plate right here. You can see the gap of it right here. That's a 48 by 48 plate. It has the train track, and then it's also going to have the mixer. I don't know what the final position of the mixer is going to be, but it's probably going to be somewhere around there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a raised platform for it. And how I'm going to do that is actually build a mills plate using 16 by 16 base plates as the base. So rather than using a base plate on the bottom, I'm going to use actual plates that can adapt to bricks. And then I'm going to top it with, once again, plates that can adopt bricks. And then I'm going to put support pillars underneath it so we can actually raise that up. But embedded in that mills plate, like within the bricks that'll be 1 or 2 bricks tall, I'm actually going to embed this ugly platform that the mixer sits on. So I'm going to build a new platform. Who remembers back in the day when I had a custom platform that accommodated that. And I say accommodated a lot too, sorry. But yeah, there used to be a tunnel that passed underneath it. It was a big white wall, and then you could come up there, and there's different food vendors and games and stuff underneath it. It was pretty cool, but I want to do a refreshed version of that. So those two rides. So there's those two rides, and then there's an awkward base plate right here. You see that? That's 96 studs by 8 studs. So now you can see what I mean. These awkward sized Mills plates are all over the place to just accommodate, once again, these weird rides, right? So I decided to put this one here because I wanted to break the line, and I think this is the best way to do it. It makes it really narrow. Clearly, minifigures aren't going to be able to walk through here. But when I make this detail here, I want it to have winding trails, and that trail is going to go through here, which is pretty wide. That's probably, what, 6 or 8 studs. So that should be fine. I'm going to have to fence off both rides, but they'll be able to walk through there, maybe go to the fountain, walk around the fountain, and then come through here. So that's going to be a narrow trail. I didn't want to do that, but I wanted to break the line. I just think it was more important to do that. And I think when we get some green grass all in here and the trails going through with different food vendors and this raised up on an actual permanent platform, it'll start to make sense. We have some wide open space over here, which is nice. I'm not sure what we're going to do there yet. Then, of course, we have the other roller coaster. And on either side of the fountain, there is another awkward plate. So there's one right here and one right here. And you can see this is so awkward. It comes off the base plate 4 studs because this is actually the same size as 2 48 by 48 plates. So it's 96 studs, but it needs that additional space. So for example, you can't put this roller coaster next to this roller coaster because it needs those 4 studs. So you can't put them up against each other. You can't put this ride up against this ride. It looks like you can, but the canopy of this ride actually comes out and it runs into these beams. So this is a little bit tricky as well. All of these things need special attention to make it fit in a tight layout like this. And I think that's what makes it so difficult, and that's why during the time lapse you see me moving back and forth so many different times and moving these things around and trying to figure it out, because they just each have their own characteristics that make them a little more difficult to place like in an amusement park. So I've got a massive spot over here. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. First, check out my new plate for the haunted house. Clearly not done yet, but it is a 48 by 48. And it's got 32 by 32 studs in the center there, which are actually raised up 3 additional bricks off the Mills plate. And then it has 8 studs of space on either side, so I can texture and detail this and make it up on its own little hill. Also going to add some sort of bridge going over top of here, and then there can be a line up and a queue over here and more rock detail over here. Now the interesting thing about this plate is it's not just as easy as it would seem. This thing can open up, so I wanted to leave that as a feature of this ride. You can still open it up, of course. I didn't fill in the interior. I don't plan on opening this thing a crazy amount of times. What, of course, I could do is, technically, I could put some plate in here and tile the entire thing, but I just feel like that would be a waste of time and parts because I truly don't open this as often as I should. So I know that it can open. I'm happy with it as the way it is. And you know what? At least it's on its own plate now. When I want to move it, I can just grab this and move it. Now, conveniently, this one was actually on these tan plates that can adapt to studs. It's not on a base plate, so it's actually pretty easy to do. But there's the start of our haunted house Mills plate. Yeah, not bad. So I've got a really awkward space over here, and this is where the Disney Castle is going to go. This one here is 2 base plates by 2.5 base plates. So I've got to create 1 giant plate, and that is all going to be for the Disney Castle. There's a few things that I have to take care of, such as this plate right here has to be converted onto a 16 by 16 because right now it's a 16 by 32. So I've got to change that up, and it's just going to be the train track. And then I can put this whole, or give this whole space to the Disney Castle. Another plate that I have to change up is right here. This may as well be light gray, I think. It'd probably look better if that was light gray. So I'll do that as well. So I've got to make this massive plate for that and change up these 2 train tracks. And after I get that done, the base layout is pretty much done for the new and improved amusement park. Fixing the train track is pretty easy, just pretty much transfer it right over, and then I can use those half base plates that I freed up to create this massive plate, which is just huge, 2.5 by 2. So yeah, just a beast. I'm topping that with the 16 by 16 plates. And then actually around the edge of my Mills plates, I've been using 1 by 2 bricks just to help save 2 by 2s, which I use so much of. I know trains take up a huge amount of space in the amusement park and in the city in general, but I like them. They add motion to the city, and they just sort of make it come alive. And then this massive plate for the Disney Castle. Now, I know the Disney Castle, I've been talking about doubling it. It's still part of the plan. This whole space in the amusement park is pretty tight. It's pretty difficult to work with. I don't really want to allocate any more space to the amusement park. And once again, I know the trains take up a lot of space, but I like them. So it feels pretty good to get the base layout going here. I want to talk a little bit about the Disney Castle. I do have a second Disney Castle, and I could create the full castle. So rather than it being an open back, I could actually sort of replicate this going that way, and same with that side, and then just sort of have it as a round Disney Castle. The issue is right now in this position, I guess I can move it a bit further back there. What do we got? 4 studs there, another 4 studs here. So we've got 24 studs of space. That could probably do it. It might get a little bit too close to the roller coaster, especially if I try to raise it up, give it a stage like I've done in the past. And if I want to add some water around the base of it or something like the actual Disney Castle in Florida, that would be super cool. It's definitely a project I want to tackle. Don't think I'm going to have it in me today to start that. That is like, I need to spend 3-4 days of straight up working on that project. But we are starting the amusement park, so that's good. Then I also need to work on this here, right? The bridge going over the top and give that the details it requires. And then I need to just start laying green plate. Taking mass amounts of green plate, which I currently have, and just sort of start laying it down on the edge of the train track and along the rides and sort of everywhere, and create my strips of green space throughout. And that's going to help me create my pathways or trails going throughout the entire amusement park. Oh, and included in those walkways and green areas, of course, are going to be food vendors, souvenir stands, and meet and greets as well. Those will be scattered all throughout the park, and those will all be custom designs. Still not a huge fan of this, but how else can I lay this out where it's not in a straight line? There's room to do things. I want to keep this space for the Disney Castle. In fact, I don't think it's enough. I think I'm happy with this layout, but lots to think about, that's for sure. And I also need to start working on this. I'm not sure if it's going to be that tall. I just whipped that up really quickly. That sits on 2 of the glass panels right now. So it's 10 bricks tall. I'd probably be half of that. I just have to make sure that it doesn't collide with the trains or the roller coasters. I just slapped it down there, probably move it over 6 studs so it's right in the middle, and then have a tunnel going underneath it. Or just have it on support pillars so people can walk underneath it. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And then what I was thinking is the space behind the Ferris wheel there is have it so people can actually go behind there. So it's like you should put the smoking area back there, because they always, well, they used to have designated smoking areas in Disney World. Now I don't think you can smoke in the park at all. But if you put a designated smoking area back there, it would be pretty funny. Then I need to create like a mass amount of fences or hedges. And those hedges are going to go all along the train here. Pretty much everywhere, because this whole train track needs to be blocked off. So those curved hedges that I put over there by the bonsai tree, I think are going to come in super handy. And I'm going to build a ton of those to try and fence off this whole area. What else am I going to do today? I don't know. That's why I'm sort of talking about it with you right now. I'm pretty happy with what I've accomplished. Do I need to sleep on the layout? Maybe, maybe not. I guess something that would be super easy to accomplish right now would just to be put pedestrian crossing over top of this train track, remove all the black tile, curved slopes up here, and then make this all light gray, and then put some sort of thing that opens and closes. I don't know if it would be like, you know, worth it to put a staircase there, because that staircase would have to come up pretty high to accommodate the train, and it'd be sort of weird if you walk in the park. Straighten out if you walk in the park and the first thing you're greeted by is this staircase that goes up 8 bricks. It's like, oh, that doesn't really look that good. I'd rather have one long crossing there. But yeah, lots to think about. Where to start is the biggest question, though. I'm pretty happy with the layout. Let me know what you think of it by commenting below. I'm going to think about it overnight, and then I'm sure within my next couple uploads here, we will continue making some more progress down here in the amusement park. Looking pretty good so far, eh? And Walt Disney would definitely not approve of this zooming by the Disney Castle. Hey, thank you so much, everybody. Remember, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Farewell.